Ready to go?
Time for the morning patrol. Only 4 months ago, this would have been an idyllic drive on Mantoloking's barrier island in the state of New Jersey. But what Lieutenant Barkas shows me now has been transformed into a disaster zone. We're approaching the southern control point. For most people, this is the end of the line. Access is granted only with special passes.
Just pull that out for me?
Yeah, that doesn't look like one of mine. Where's your Mantoloking pass?
This contractor only wants to cross Mantoloking.
Where are you trying to go to in Mantoloking, sir?
Going to Bay Edge.
You're going to Bay Edge.
But Barkas isn't letting him through.
To get over to Bay Edge. All right?
Even if it means the man has to drive a detour of 10 kilometers. And the reason is simple. Since Hurricane Sandy destroyed this affluent town, all the houses on the 3-kilometer stretch between the northern and southern control points are empty. It's a looter's paradise.
Unfortunately, the storms brought out some things that we're not used to around here, you know, but and nobody's used to it. It doesn't feel like America, but it is what it is. It's not a permanent thing. We're not trying to change everybody's perspective on things. We're just trying to make it safe for everybody, and it'll go back to normal.
On that rock line right there is...
I find myself wondering if a superpower like the USA shouldn't be able to prevent this kind of destruction. But how? If anybody knows the answer to that, it's Chris Nelson, Special Counsel for the reconstruction of Mantoloking.
Thank you.
He shows me around, together with Pam Steenland, one of the 300 people who live here. We start at the place where Sandy hit first.
The ocean looks pretty peaceful today, doesn't it?
The biggest Atlantic hurricane of all time came to Mantoloking from the southeast, bringing tidal waves several meters high, as well as wind speeds reaching 130 kilometers an hour. 75% of all the homes here were destroyed. But other townships just down the coast survived the storm, and Chris knows why.
Sure, you could have put a lot more beach in front of the homes here. And the homes that the Army Corps came in and replenished before the storm, which is in Harvey Cedars and Long Beach Township down below, those homes actually survived the brunt of the storm. Whereas our town, we only had about 50 feet of beach in front of it, and you can see the devastation that the storm caused to those houses.
Beaches as natural barriers. A few meters can make all the difference. The problem here in Mantoloking, many house owners refused to have their beach replenished because they didn't want any heavy machinery on their property. These private interests were not challenged. The state did not have the legal authority to get tough on them. And that had terrible consequences also for the people on the other side of the island. Chris takes me to the bayside. There used to be a house standing right here. Now it's 300 meters to the west, in the middle of the bay that separates Mantoloking from the mainland. The beds on the second floor were freshly made when Sandy came, and Chris tells us that's the way they still are.
But it was horrible. I mean, you look in there and...
It got blown right off its...
And the bed's still made. I mean, the bed on the second floor is still made, with all the pillows on it and everything.
Chris works in the disaster zone every day. I want to know how, mentally, he deals with all the destruction. The answer is very American.
And you see people working together to rebuild their homes and to put things and to cart stuff out and to get things back in. So it's a roller coaster of emotions each day I come to work.
When you're down and out, get back up. I hear that a lot in the U.S. The determination of Americans might be their most powerful weapon against some of the superpowers' deficiencies. But with my German origins, I inevitably ask myself, wouldn't it have been better to have just built everything right in the first place? Pam invites me to join her at an important meeting. On the way, she tells me about life on the island and her house. I want to know if she's not even a little bit mad at the authorities, the beach house owners, anybody.
I remember the night that I didn't want to leave, thinking that this wasn't going to be anything, and I'm glad I left. I'm glad the police were able to get everyone out of here, because there was certainly a huge opportunity for people to die if they stayed like I wanted to. So it's upsetting, but I'm sure that the people in this town feel like I do, and we're going to put it back together. It'll take years, but it'll get done.
Reconstruction, that's what everybody wants to talk about in the auditorium of a nearby elementary school. Ever since Sandy hit, the town council has been organizing these meetings at least once a month. Attendance has thinned a little bit since the beginning, but Pam is always present because if you don't show up here, you might miss some new and important regulation.
There's too much information to try to extract from all over the place, and they really do pull it together. You'll see there's all different disciplines up there, people that are part of the town, other people that they bring in to try to explain what needs to be done in order for us to get back to life.
$3.8 billion.
Chris plays an essential role in this. He explains all the next steps. Especially important today, all the houses that have to be reconstructed, partially or completely, have to be raised up from the ground to protect them from tidal waves. It's just not clear how high exactly. But that's a very important detail, and Pam wants to know.
And you're on TV, too.
I have a flood map clarification question.
Even though her house was not completely destroyed, she asked the experts which flood zone her property lies in. That will determine how high her house needs to be, should she opt for some kind of reconstruction.
Control point.
As it turns out, Pam's house is in the zone with the toughest regulations.
This high.
After 2 hours, the meeting is over, but much remains unclear. So the people of Mantoloking go to Chris directly to get some answers. Many are losing patience.
Extremely.
Well, I mean, look, that 3 months out, we're basically still without utilities. And that's difficult for anybody that's living in a modern nation to understand. How can that be? How can I not have electricity to my house 3 months after a storm? But when you look at the size and the devastation that Sandy caused, you know, and I get to see it every day, it actually is pretty realistic.
Some here say in private that Sandy has had some positive effects too. Some infrastructure investments have been overdue for years, and finally, the authorities are trying hard to tackle them. The beach replenishment is one of them, but there are others too.
In terms of our roads are horrible. We have been fighting and fighting to try to get just simple paving done, and each year they put it off and put it off and put it off. So what they mentioned in the meeting, that now they're going to finally pave us all the way down, that was something that they were going to put off for another 4 years. So I think, yes, they need to take that more seriously.
So Sandy is accelerating.
It's done a lot of good things, actually.
The road Pam has in mind is this one, State Road 35, the most important traffic artery in Mantoloking. It's the state of New Jersey that's responsible for maintaining it, but the state has been very frugal about it. Even before Sandy, New Jersey's oldest highway wasn't really up to the standards of a superpower, just like so many roads and bridges in the U.S. It's the same thing with the power grid, mostly above ground and very vulnerable. Power outages for days on end are no exception. America's infrastructure is crumbling, and the price tag for fixing it is high. About $1 trillion over the next 7 years. Pam's invited me to visit her house. As a resident, she's got the necessary paperwork for the police blocks. But she has to be out of the neighborhood by 4 p.m. There's a curfew from late afternoon to morning. Do not tear down. That's what this green cross means. The outside of her house suffered very little damage.
This is the brand new kitchen.
But inside, it's a different picture. The ground floor was flooded.
Even with the little bit of water that we had, you could see all the mold that started to grow.
Where's the mold?
See this black stuff?
The gorgeous house with the view of the bay. Pam needs to completely renovate it on the inside. In spite of the relatively minor flooding, the mold is everywhere. But Pam is an Ironman triathlete, so she does not let things get her down easily. Because of the nature of the damage, she does not have to reconstruct, but she wants to hydraulically lift her house up anyway by 2 more meters. That's one of the reasons why she's asked Bill Van Berkel, her trusted building inspector, to come over. He explains how it's all going to be done.
No, the holes get cut. The holes get cut through roughly about this high, okay, high enough to take their planks through, you know, their steel beams through. They'll have to raise it about 8 feet or better, or even more, to get underneath there and get machinery and supplies and stuff on that.
Sounds professional, but nevertheless, American houses have a bad reputation, at least in Germany. They're considered lightweight, quickly built, and quickly broken, just like the infrastructure. Bill confirms the last part of this: gas lines, power lines, sewage systems, all out of date. But when it comes to the houses here, he stands his ground.
And stuff down there. It's just one of these freak storms that came through and got the ones. Actually, what happened is just the earth undermined the houses, and that's what made them fall. It wasn't that the houses got destroyed. You know, when that wave came through, it just took it all out. But yeah, no, they build them to stay, to last.
Oh, I have a light.
Is that new?
Wow, yes.
It's taken 3 months since the storm for Pam to get her power back. It's clear the Americans have a lot more to do if they want to protect themselves against Mother Nature in the future. After all, climate change will likely mean more extreme weather.
Last year was Irene, this year was Sandy. What will next year be? But next year, my house will be up 14 feet in the air, so we'll see.
For all my criticisms, I do know that nothing can completely defend people against monster storms like Sandy, but I do think the U.S. could at least do more to be a little better prepared.